Heading into week 13 of the fantasy football season, I am giving you my waiver wire pickups. I'm going to be giving you my top 10 pickups, some honorable mentions, and we're going to be talking about some injuries that maybe we should be looking at. So do me a favor, drop a like on the video, subscribe. Why don't you comment down below as we're heading into Monday Night Football, what do you need to win your matchup tonight? Okay, first let's start with some honorable mentions. These are either players that I think should already be rostered, and that's why I didn't put them on this list, because they should already be rostered, or they didn't make the list and they could be stashes. So Treylon Burks, one of the players I've been advocating for a lot on our Dynasty channel this offseason. He's had two really good games back to back. He should already be rostered in every single format. Same with Jameson Williams, same with OBJ. All those players should already be rostered. Now, if you want to stash a couple players, how about DeAndre Carter and Jordan Mason? Jordan Mason is specifically because we don't know the status of Elijah Mitchell's injury, and we're also not sure what's going on with CMC's knees either. So if those two running backs were to miss time, it would be Jordan Mason who would need to step up. There's no more Jeff Wilson, so I think he's well worth a stash, and we know how often these 49er running backs have been injured. All right, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, if you're looking for a tight end, that rhymed, no big deal. How about Tyler Conklin, who is currently rostered in 19% of sleeper leagues? This is more of a predictive ad rather than an ad based off of what had happened last week. He did put up 50 yards on 3 receptions last week. He wasn't really necessarily the main guy in the passing offense, but he could be more involved in their future. In the upcoming games, they have the Vikings, Bills, Lions, Jaguars, and Seahawks. And I anticipate those matchups being much closer than what it was versus Chicago. And Conklin could serve as Mike White's safety valve over the middle of the field. Think about pretty much how he had that same role for Joe Flacco from weeks 1 to 4. And in that span, he was the tight end 9. So now, just like we had Joe Flacco to start the year, we have Mike White, another quarterback who is much more willing to throw the ball, who I would say even the Jets trust a little bit more to throw the ball. So I'm not spending a ton to go out and get Tyler Conklin, but the tight end position is complete hell. And if you can at least add this guy, if you have a free space on your bench or you're not happy with your current tight end, there's a chance he could put up some good games coming up. So I'm willing to spend anywhere from about 0 to 5% of my fab on Tyler Conklin. At number 9, we have JaMycal Hasty, who's currently rostered in 3% of sleeper leagues. I anticipate some people might have Hasty really high this week. I'm going to tell you why I think you should be hesitant to really spend up big or really anything on Hasty, to be honest. He filled in nicely for Etienne last week, who left the game with an injury. However, there's two big reasons I'm not really prioritizing him. Firstly, Travis Etienne's going to be fine. He already mentioned this in the post-game interview. He said, we'll be straight for next week, so he plans on playing next week. To me, it sounds like they were being cautious with him this entire game, and the fact that he was on the sideline for the entire time he was quote-unquote injured says to me as well that they were just being cautious with him. The second reason is because Darrell Henderson was just picked up by this team. He did not play this week. I anticipate him being that RB2 instead of JaMycal Hasty moving forward. He just needed more time to know this offense, know the scheme, know the playbook. So I think Henderson's really going to be the guy that you would want to pick up here instead of Hasty, but I assume he's already rostered in most leagues. I'm willing to spend about 0 to 5% of my fab again on Hasty. I just don't really want to prioritize him. At number 8, we have actually one of my favorite ads of the week, even though he's only at number 8, and that is Sky Moore. Currently rostered in 24% of sleeper leagues. He's number 24, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, number 24. Shout out to Bean. Actually, RIP Bean. No, but look, this is more about what could be for Sky Moore rather than what has been. Second round draft capital in this year's draft. Very talented player. We enjoyed scouting him on our Dynasty channel. Just has not been given many opportunities. However, he has seen 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. And this week, he actually led this team in targets, like more than Kelsey, more than anyone. He had the most targets of anyone. even though 6 other players ran more routes than he did. Shout out to PFF for that stat. But look, with McCole Hardman on the IR and this team having really an opening for like who wants to step up and be the guy here. Juju's going to be back to his old self soon, but there's open targets here. And I think Sky Moore is talented enough where he could demand targets as we head down the stretch and he gets more involved into this game plan. I personally believe he's the type of wide receiver. Specifically, I want them to put him in the slot. But if they don't, I still believe he's the type of wide receiver where if he gets 7 targets a game, I think he could be a top 24 wide receiver rest of season. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that he's going to get that number or his volume's going to increase, but it could. And we have seen wide receivers volume increase at this time of the year many times in the past. So why not Sky Moore? Why not in this offense? I'm willing to spend about 15% of my fab on him. I'm not going to pay up big time, but if I have an empty roster spot, he's one of the guys I really want on that roster spot. At number 7, Isaiah McKenzie, currently rostered in 34% of sleeper leagues. McKenzie has been massively inconsistent. That would be the word I would use for him this year. Camp star, didn't really have the best start to the season. But look, we cannot ignore a game last week in which he saw 10 targets, catching 6 of them for 96 yards and a touchdown. Combine that with the fact that he has one of the best quarterbacks in the league throwing him the ball, and you can see easily like the real reason as to why he should probably be rostered. He's an easy drop if he doesn't perform next week versus New England. But if we start to see some consistency, you could truly be looking at a flex option moving forward into the playoffs. I'm not spending any more than about 15% of my fab on McKenzie, and I actually might be more towards the 10% with him personally. At number 6, it is White SZN, currently rostered in just 8% of leagues. And look, if you're in a 1 quarterback league, then this doesn't mean as much to you. Now, if you're streaming the position, maybe there's a couple weeks where you can stream him for sure, but this is more catered towards super flex leagues. Mike White played out of his mind replacing Zach Wilson versus the Bears. He completed 22 of 28 passes for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. 30 plus fantasy points in our leagues where it's 6-point passing touchdowns. And while it's unclear how long the train will last here, we have seen the massive upside that Mike White carries with him in the Superflex format. So you look at the rest of the season schedule, you see the weapons all around him. Outside of week 14 versus Buffalo, every other matchup is favorable for the quarterback. So with the weapons he has, it's not crazy to say he could be a potential, I wouldn't say league winner, but someone who can help you win a league if you're in a Superflex league and you don't have a solidified quarterback too. We have studied the end of season schedule in depth. It was always the Jets have a great schedule, but we didn't trust their quarterback. Now you have Mike White. Let's see what he can do. I'll spend about 15% of my fab to get him on my team. In a Superflex league, I'll go all the way up to 25-30%. At number 5, let's talk about Kyren Williams. What a crazy story for him. I remember in the pre-draft process, he had such hype around his name. He put up huge numbers at Notre Dame. And then at the combine, he fell flat at his 40 time, and that pretty much tanked his draft capital. He is now getting an opportunity to be the RB1 for the Rams, currently rostered in 44% of sleeper leagues. It's clear to me that the Rams want to give him this backfield. I mean, Darrell Henderson's gone. Cam Akers, I don't think they trust him anymore. It's clear that the opportunity is right in front of Kyren Williams. And check this out. He was on the field last game for 38 plays, versus 16 for Cam Akers. And on 3rd down, he outsnapped Akers 10-1. He was already getting all the passing work in this offense last week. Now he's also getting all the work on the ground. Well, most of the work on the ground. He led the team with 11 carries and also finished 2nd in receiving yards on the team, which wasn't all that hard to do because Bryce Perkins was a quarterback. Look, this offense is putrid. So it's really difficult to predict when points will come consistently for Kyren Williams. However, there are some really good matchups upcoming that he could potentially take advantage of. So I'm willing, in a year where running backs are so difficult to come by, I'm willing to roster him and wait and see if Stafford's going to come back and if that ceiling could rise. So I'll spend about 20% of my fab on Kyren to get him on my squad. All right, at number 4, do you need a streaming wide receiver option for the next couple weeks? Let's talk about Zay Jones, currently rostered in 38% of sleeper leagues. He's the wide receiver 44 on the year. at the time of this recording. However, he has had 24 targets in the past 2 games and just put up a career high 145 receiving yards in their win versus the Baltimore Ravens. There will be inconsistencies for Zay Jones moving forward. That's just facts. However, it's going to be almost impossible for you to go to the waiver wire right now in a standard 12-man league and find a wide receiver that is capable of receiving 14 targets in a single game like Zay Jones just had. Okay? The upcoming matchups, you have the Lions and the Titans. Both teams who give up the top 5 points to the wide receiver position on a per game basis in fantasy. So Zay Jones is well worth rostering. How much should you spend? It depends. How desperate are you for a flex? That's the question. I'm about 20% of my fab, right around there. Probably a little bit less unless I'm desperate. That's why I put the 20% there. But fine pickup if you need a streaming option for the next couple games. And maybe there can be some consistency there that you can ride into the playoffs. At number 3, Van Jefferson, who is currently rostered in 40% of sleeper leagues. Cooper Kupp, likely done for the year. Allen Robinson, confirmed out for the year, having surgery. Van Jefferson is now the wide receiver 1 for the Rams for the rest of the season. And I fully anticipate his target share continually rising each week till he hits about that 7 to 10 targets per game mark. The only reason he isn't higher on this list is because we don't know the status of Matthew Stafford. If Matthew Stafford was healthy, I think Van might be my number 2 or even number 1 on this list, but we don't know that at this point. Van Jefferson last week led the team with 7 targets. He put up 3 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. Second closest wide receiver to him was Ben Skoranek, who had 4 targets. If Stafford is to return, we could see Van legit hit the 8 to 10 target mark per game, and he could be a reliable flex to maybe even wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. So just like Zay Jones, I'll spend about 20% of my fab to potentially get him on my team. All right, and the last 2 players, I consider them potential league winners. I'm not saying they will be, but there is the pathway for them to be league winners. At number 2, Elijah Moore, currently rostered in 29% of sleeper leagues. We love Elijah Moore, loved him coming into the season, loved the talent out of Ole Miss. Never understood why he was not at all involved this entire year. But Mike White's season has arrived, and Elijah Moore had one of his best games with Mike White already this year. Now, yes, it was only 2 targets, but he converted on those 2 targets for quite a bit of yardage. I think it was 50 yards and a touchdown. More importantly, this offense looks completely different now with Mike White under center. He is much more willing to throw the ball to his weapons, and you could see Elijah Moore go on a little streak here to end the season. Remember last year when we saw Elijah Moore originally break out? From weeks 7 to 13 in 2021, Elijah Moore was a wide receiver 4 in all of fantasy football, okay? And he also had 5 touchdowns in that stretch. Mike White was the spark to that run, and he had a massive part to play in it. We all love the talent. Could we see another another breakout down the stretch, if you will? Flex play consideration, maybe. If we have another good game, and when we see more targets, he could be a flex guy heading into the playoffs. I've said this before, but the Jets have a very, very good playoff schedule, so there could be consideration for flex moving forward. I think I'm willing to spend about 25 to 30% of my fab this late into the season. It's going to be hard for you to look at your waiver wire and find anyone with a higher upside than Elijah Moore right now, as far as like filling your flex spot. And at number 1, how about Zonovan Bam Knight, the undrafted rookie running back out of NC State, currently rostered in 0% of sleeper leagues, meaning every single person watching this could potentially pick up Zonovan Knight, okay? Michael Carter sprained his ankle last week versus Chicago, and we are yet to know at the time of recording this the severity of the injury, but I fully anticipate it being multiple game absence. And James Robinson was a healthy scratch this week, meaning somehow he fell to being the running back 4 on this depth chart. Before Michael Carter's injury, Zonovan Knight was already taking all of the James Robinson snaps. The James Robinson snaps that they had set aside for him, they said, sorry, James, you're the RB4 now. Here you go, Zonovan. Do what you want with these opportunities. And he looked pretty good with those opportunities. After Michael Carter's injury, Bam played 18 of 22 possible snaps. And I went back and I watched every single play that he touched the ball. He ran with real passion. He clearly had some juice, some explosiveness, was breaking tackles, and was heavily involved in the passing game. He had 3 receptions for 34 yards. If Michael Carter is going to go on the IR, and we look at the upcoming schedule for Zonovan Knight here, Minnesota, Buffalo in week 14. After that, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle. Guys, that's what we talk about, league winning matchups in the playoffs. Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle. So if you need an RB2, you're desperate at the running back spot, I'm not saying blow it all, but I'm willing to spend about 30 to 35% of my fab. If I knew Michael Carter was going to go on the IR with this ankle injury, I would spend probably whatever I have left at this point in the season, because I truly believe that Zonovan Knight can get you like 10 points a game, and that's pretty valuable here on the waiver wire. So again, depends on your situation. If you have like 6 running backs that are healthy and that you like ahead of Zonovan, then of course you wouldn't do something like this. But Ty Johnson's role did not grow. It was all given to Zonovan. So I'm very intrigued to see. And he was very good with his opportunities. Very efficient. Looked good. Looked like he had juice. In that scheme, if he gets 15 to 20 touches a game, even 10 to 15, I think he can put up 10 points a game heading into the playoffs. So you tell me how much that's worth to you. What percentage of fab? For me, if Michael Carter was my RB2, I would spend all of the money I had left to go get Zonovan, just to be safe and make sure that I'm not without a running back. By the time you're watching this, maybe we have clarity. Let's say he's going to miss a couple weeks. I'm willing to spend about 30% of my fab to get Zonovan for those couple weeks, because we know from what we saw early in the game that James Robinson is no longer involved and Zonovan has those opportunities, so he's still going to be involved when Michael Carter's back. So those are my waiver wire pickups of the week. Don't be afraid to spend money at this point, guys. I mean, how much? You don't have many more opportunities to convert on the waiver wire. So I know there's a lot of people earlier in the season. We had some great waiver wire pickups and they were worried. Oh, I don't know if I spend my money. How much longer have you got left? Do me a favor, comment down below who you're picking up on the waiver wire, what you need to win tonight on Monday Night Football. If you already won this week and you're watching it later, then congratulations. Drop a like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.